Hey everyone, it's Carissa Wiley at sprinkledwithglitter.com. Thanks for joining me today. Today I am sharing a Christmas card and it just might be one of my favorite cards ever. I absolutely love this product suite from Concord 9th. It's called Christmas Cloche and it includes a set of dies as well as a coordinating stamp set which has this beautiful typography sentiment that fits perfectly on the front of the cloche. But before we get started, can we just talk about the word cloche? I didn't even know it existed before I got this die set. I just thought it was like a globe thingy. I don't know. They're everywhere right now. This would be fabulous to decorate for seasons throughout the year, but we, of course, are making a Christmas card today. So I'm taking the two outlines of the cloche. There is a smaller one and a larger one, and I'm lining them up on the magnetic mat of my Anna Griffin Empress cutting plates. So the Empress has a regular clear plastic cutting plate like most other die cut machines, but it also has a magnetic mat, and I do cut into mine. Anna Griffin has demonstrated that before. I find it very helpful when you're trying to keep a couple of dies in the same place. Now I did add a layer of tape to these two dies once they were positioned where I wanted them because I wanted to be able to cut several of these frames. So the first frame I die cut from some matte gold cardstock from Concord 9th, and then I die cut two or three more, I believe three more, from some plain white cardstock. Now once I had all of the frames die cut, I'm going to separate these two dies. And I am going to switch to just the larger of the two outlines. I'm going to hold it in place on some clear acetate. And because I'm running this through and I need other die cuts, I'm also going to run my Christmas tree through at this time. But this time I'm going to cut into the clear plate and I'm adding my metal shim into my die cutting sandwich because I find that I need that metal shim and the resistance of the clear plastic plate in order to get a clean cut on acetate. Now I'm going to finish up some of my die cutting here. I'm die cutting the base of the cloche from some wood cardstock. I also die cut the bow from some grapefruit cardstock. And I'm also cutting that large outline of the cloche once again using some sea glass cardstock from Concord 9th. Fun fact, I didn't actually use the sea glass piece on my finished card. But here I am using it to help me line up my stamp on the acetate. So I not only have that sea glass layer, but I also have the acetate layer directly over the top of it. And I'm positioning my beautiful sentiment stamp on top of that, lining it up to where it's going to fit perfectly on the front of that cloche. Now, when you pick up these clear stamps and you have the acetate in place, it kind of tends to pull it up. I made sure the sea glass stayed in place, repositioned the acetate, and then held it back down in place with the magnets. And now I'm using a heavy layer of anti-static powder all over the top of this piece of acetate. So it's hard to see the acetate here, but I'm actually stamping on the acetate, not the cardstock itself. I've inked up my stamp with some VersaMark ink. I'm going to use this for embossing, and then I'm just pressing that onto the acetate. And once I know that I have a great impression, I'm going to go ahead and remove the acetate from my Misty stamping tool and add some ultrafine white embossing powder from Wow. This is one of my favorite white embossing powders. I'm just going to sprinkle that generously over just the front of the acetate. When you're working with acetate, it's really important that you don't get any of the embossing powder on the backside because it will static cling to the backside of that acetate and you won't get a clean image in the end. So I gave that a good flick. That's another good idea when you're heat embossing on acetate. And now I'm heat setting this and I'm keeping my distance from the acetate just a little bit with that heat tool. And you can kind of see here, I'm going in and out of adding heat to the acetate so that I do not warp it too much. Now this acetate is from the Essentials by Ellen line. I am so sad that it is being retired. I won't be able to get my hands on it anymore. It's not technically heat resistant, but I have found that I'm able to emboss on this without a problem. Now, once that embossing powder set up, I went ahead and wiped away the excess anti-static powder tool with my microfiber cloth. And now I'm adding some liquid glue to one of those white frames and adding the gold frame on top of that just to give it a little stability, because this matte gold cardstock needs a little something behind it, especially when it's this thin, to give it a little bit of heft and weight. Now, while that's sitting up, I'm going to add a clear block on top of that frame and let the glue kind of do its magic. And while that's setting up, I'll go ahead and assemble my bow. This is really easy to put together. There's kind of a detail layer on the bottom of these loops. I did add a little bit of T0 or T1 Copic marker along the seams of this, just to give it a little more dimension and shadowing. And I added that center of the bow. And once you get the center and those bottom of the loops kind of adhered on, then you're just gonna add your little tails. And you can add these tails at any angle that you want to. I actually had to go back and change the angle of these tails because they were blocking my sentiment too much in the end. Now, for the base of the cloche that I die cut from this wood cardstock, I adhered the detail piece over the top of that base using a little bit of foam adhesive that just kind of builds up the dimension of the base itself. And then I took this Christmas tree that I've die cut from some Nectar cardstock, and I ink blended a little bit of Ballet slipper ink from Concord 9th on the edges. In the end, I'm not really sure that you can see this, but sometimes it makes me feel better. So I will just add that just to give it a little shading here. I absolutely love Ballet slipper blended over Nectar. It's magical. And completing all of those steps allowed enough time for my glue to dry on the back of this gold frame that was layered with that white frame. So I'm adding some liquid glue to the back side of that and adding my heat embossed acetate piece and just lining up the edges to make sure that nothing's peeking out when looking at it. Then I'll add some acrylic blocks over the top of that and let it set as well. Acetate does need a little bit of time, and I do recommend liquid glue. Now, I'm going to tell you that at first I thought I was going to make a shaker tag with these elements, and then I saw how delicate these frames were, and I was like, that ain't happening. And so what I decided to do was kind of create the illusion of a shaker card. So I'm calling this an illusion shaker card. I've taken another one of those plain white frames and added it over the top of a piece of vellum. Now I am going to take the Concord 9th white pigment ink, and I'm going to stamp using this Snowfall background all over this vellum piece. And this Snowfall background is from the Christmas Cloche stamp set. And I just dare you to say Christmas Cloche 10 times fast. You can probably do it, but I've gotten so tongue-tied in this video. So now I went ahead and assembled the first piece of snowy layer on the bottom of this vellum. I have that beautiful Snowfall background. And on top of that, I am going to layer my Christmas tree just using some liquid glue. And my snow layers for the bottom of this cloche are actually die cut from some white glitter cardstock from Concord 9th, and it gives a beautiful little sparkle to the bottom of my scene here. Now, because this is kind of an illusion shaker, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some sparkling clear snowflake sequins to this scene, and I'm going to kind of tuck them all around that snowy background. I'm going to tuck them behind my Christmas tree, and I'm also going to glue some on top of the Christmas tree. So it looks like these snowflakes are floating in this cloche, but they're actually glued in place. So they're not going to move around like a shaker would. But since there are varying depths and heights of the tree and the embellishments and that snowy background, it kind of gives the illusion of a shaker without having to deal with the tiny foam adhesive or the multiple layers of that frame. Now, to seal this up, I just added a little liquid glue to the back of that gold frame, and I added that to the top of my scene, so I kind of trapped all that snow and snowflakes inside. And then I dug through my Christmas release from Concord 9th, and I found this Snowfall card front background that I had previously die cut from some sea glass cardstock, so I decided to use that for my card base. And I also had this fabulous plaid turnabout that I have heat embossed on white cardstock using white embossing powder. And I thought that was a great tone-on-tone texture for the bottom of this card front. So I trimmed a piece of that plaid down, and I'm using some tape runner adhesive on the back of it, and I'm just going to adhere that strip to the bottom of my Snowfall card front, just flat like that. And then I'll take my cloche and I'll add some foam adhesive to the back of that, and I'm going to position that on my card front. Now you'll notice that I've already added my little bow at the top of my cloche, and I did adjust the little tails of that, and I used the bow to disguise a little bit more foam adhesive towards the top of that cloche to give it a little support. And once I'm happy with the placement, I'll just press this down and add some of the pine sprigs from this Christmas cloche die set to the bottom of my cloche. I've die cut them from some Juniper cardstock as well as some white glitter cardstock from Concord 9th. And I'm going to finish off this little die cut vignette at the bottom of this cloche with a few grapefruit colored enamel dots. These are left over from a previous holiday workshop from Concord 9th, so I had them. And then I'm going to add some of these sparkling clear snowflakes on the outside of the cloche as well. And you'll notice in the detail photos that I actually sprinkled a couple of these kind of tucked behind and in amongst those little pine boughs that are at the bottom of the cloche. And that finishes off my Illusion Shaker card today. I absolutely love this card. I don't make multiples of mini cards, but I could see myself making a few of these to give out at Christmas time. This cloche would also make an adorable shaped card, so you could use a couple of these and score one at the top to create a fabulous shaped card for the holidays. So this is one of my favorite cards that I've ever created. Let me know in the comments below if you're loving this card as much as I am. I love the colors. I love the imagery of the die and the stamp set together. And I had so much fun putting this all together and adding a little bit of sparkle and shine and a little Carissa flair. Now, as always, I will have links to the featured products used in this project in the description at YouTube. So if you're looking for something in particular, be sure you check there. Or you can head on over to my blog at sprinkledwithglitter.com. I'll have that linked below as well. Over there, you'll find more still shots, more information, and a complete list of supplies. As always, I want to say thank you so much for stopping by and hanging out with me today. It means so much to me that you would spend your time here watching this video. I know your time is valuable. So I just want to say thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give the video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications here on my YouTube channel so you don't miss any of my paper crafting and card making video tutorials. Happy crafting, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.